This week, a hot-blooded subject, mammals. We'll also talk about dogs and learn about the language of dolphins and whales. When I was a child, animals were four-legged, silky, and preferably affectionate creatures. Well, I later discovered that my definition only included a very small family of living beings, mammals. Reptiles ruled the living world for a major part of Earth's history. But about 65 million years ago, their supremacy came to an end for reasons that remain a mystery. Most gave their place to furry creatures that have the capacity to nurse their young, mammals. During the course of evolution, these descendants of the reptiles were to come in all shapes and sizes. Most mammals stayed on land, but some, such as the cetaceans, became completely aquatic, and others, such as the bats, learned to fly. From the mouse to the whale, the mammals encompass an astonishing array of animals, inhabiting every ecological niche. Mammals owe their success largely to homeothermy. This biological system, also called warm-blooded metabolism, enables them to maintain a stable internal body temperature regardless of their surroundings. Depending on the species, body temperature is maintained between 35 and 41 degrees Celsius. In superior mammals, body temperature does not vary by more than 1 degree during the course of a day. Homeothermy has given mammals great freedom in terms of their environment. Unlike reptiles, whose activity depends on outside temperatures, warm-blooded animals can be active at all times, enabling them to better protect themselves from predators. However, to keep a constant body temperature, most mammals have to feed continuously. During the course of evolution, their energy requirements led them to adopt increasingly high-performing anatomical systems. Their jaws, for instance, became more complex than those of their reptile ancestors. Teeth, adapted to the diet of every species, and a very powerful muscular organ, the tongue, enabled them to chew their food faster. Compared to the reptiles, the mammals' system of locomotion is a great deal more efficient. They improved the reptilian sprawl into a better running posture by drawing the legs in under the body. When they run, part of the spent energy comes back to them in a spring effect, giving them greater endurance. In addition, mammals developed a skin very different from the scaly reptilian skin. Their skin is covered with hair or fur and consists of 3 layers. An outer layer, the epidermis, an inner layer, the dermis, and subcutaneous tissue, the hypodermis. Hairs are corneous formations that take root in the dermis. They grow on a slant to the surface of the epiderm and always in the same direction. Hair usually forms a fur that permanently traps an insulating layer of air. It is this layer of air that protects mammals from the cold. Temperature control is reinforced by the presence of numerous cutaneous glands. The sebaceous glands, for instance, coat the fur with an oily substance that enhances thermal insulation. Conversely, by secreting perspiration which evaporates on the skin's surface, the sweat glands act as temperature control units and help the animal to withstand the heat. Dogs, which have no sweat glands, cool off by panting. The water evaporates from the surface of their tongues. The mammary glands, to which mammals owe their name, evolved over time from the cutaneous glands. Present in rudimentary form, even in males, they only function in females after parturition. For the most part, the mammary glands are grouped in clusters and secrete milk from the nipples. The nipples are always ventral, and their number generally corresponds to the average number of young per litter. Suckling was an important step in the evolution of mammals. During the nursing period, the young are protected from predators since they stay by their mother's side. This gives them a better chance of reaching adulthood. This explains why mammals produce smaller litters than reptiles, for example. Nursing had another important evolutionary impact. It accelerated the development of the brain and of social structure. Indeed, the period of dependence of young mammals is also a period for imparting the knowledge acquired by the mother or by the other members of the group. In apes, for example, complex social behavior is passed down from one generation to the next through instruction. The evolution of these behavioral patterns promoted brain development and a capacity for learning and applying that knowledge to life. The period for instruction is highest in human beings, who become independent only at the end of adolescence. This is probably what accounts for our species' advancement in terms of culture and intellect. However, when we consider their physical performances, most of our cousins far outstrip us. Man has influenced the evolution of mammals through domestication. The dog is a classic example. The dog is believed to be descended from the wolf. Like humans, wolves are social animals who usually gather in packs around a leader. They therefore had little difficulty adapting to man, who replaced the leader of the pack. The dog thus became a friend, but also an irreplaceable ally. For the past 10,000 years or so, the dog has been one of man's most faithful companions. A symbiotic relationship exists between them, man feeding his dog and offering him lodging, and the dog in return submitting himself entirely to his master's will. For example, police dogs can learn to carry out rescue operations, keep a criminal at bay, or sniff out concealed explosives or narcotics. Police dogs have to have remarkable physical qualities and be extremely well adjusted. When they are about 1 year old, the young dogs are selected with great care. First, they undergo a complete veterinary examination. Only dogs in perfect health are selected. Then, through a number of exercises, an experienced trainer brings to light the dog's chief psychological qualities: his courage, aggressiveness, stability, and above all, his motivation for game playing, an essential quality for training. After a few months' acquaintance with the training team, the dogs are ready to be paired. Pairing consists of forming a team, or pairing the dog with a police officer who will be his one and only master. Whether they are Belgian sheepdogs, Labrador retrievers, or German shepherds, dogs can be trained to do various tasks. However, depending on their respective qualities, every dog will be assigned a specific duty. Some excel in locating narcotics. They are obedient, playful, and like all their brethren, they have an amazing sense of smell and olfactory memory. A dog's sense of smell is 44 times greater than man's. The receptors for smell lie at the top and back of the 2 nasal passages. These sensitive cells are equipped with microscopic hair-like cilia. When an odorous molecule interacts with a cell's cilia, a nerve impulse is relayed to the olfactory center in the brain. The smell is then compared to the array of odors the dog has previously memorized. A dog's olfactory memory is crucial for him to be able to identify odors. Under normal breathing conditions, only 4% of the odorous molecules in the air penetrate into the olfactory bulb. However, when a dog scents or sniffs the air, the odorous molecules fasten themselves to the cilia of olfactory cells at a faster rate. The dog's amazing sense of smell enables it to recognize specific odors, such as those of drugs. Dogs are only able to recognize plant-based narcotics such as cannabis, cocaine, and heroin. Whatever the drug's origin or the transformations they may have undergone, a dog's ability to recognize them is not deterred. Dogs are taught to remember the smell of drugs through game playing. First, a drug is hidden inside the dog's toy. He is given time to get to know the new smell. His master then hides the toy and encourages the dog to find it. When he finds his toy, the dog receives his master's praise. Dogs trained to find drugs are able to locate as little as a few grams of a drug. In their search, they are guided by their masters who steer their attempts and interpret their behavior. It is a team effort, and dog and master work closely together. The olfactory memory of dogs is also useful in locating persons who are lost, missing, or on the run. As a rule, German Shepherds are chosen for this type of work, for they are strong, obedient, and have a keen sense of smell. But above all, they are able to carry out their missions under very different conditions. To track a person down, a dog relies on two components of the person's odor, dead body cells, and secretions. The human body is made up of roughly 60 billion cells. Every second, a certain quantity of these cells die. Dead cells come from the skin and the respiratory and digestive systems. The cells support bacteria, also specific to each individual. By decomposing the dead cells of the body, the bacteria let off a smell particular to each person. Every individual also leaves behind traces consisting of cutaneous secretions, such as perspiration, sebum, and various mucuses. Cosmetics and tobacco are also odors easily recognized by a tracking dog. When a fugitive is located, he has no alternative but to cooperate, or else the master will order the dog to neutralize him. Police dogs only act on very clear commands. They are also trained to go only for the leg or arm. At the end of their professional lives, which usually last 6 years, police dogs are allowed to retire, usually by their master's side, which they are now reluctant to leave. The fondness we feel for our domestic mammals is not only due to their affectionate nature, but also to their intelligence. In fact, biologists have found that among marine mammals, some have highly complex systems of communication. For most mammals, water is a hostile environment. Yet 50 million years ago, a terrestrial mammal close to the wolf left the land for the sea. Over the centuries, this four-legged animal evolved into different forms, perfectly adapted to marine life. Cetaceans. The cetaceans are divided into two groups distinguished mainly by their diets. The odontoceti, or toothed cetaceans, such as dolphins or killer whales, feed on mollusks or fish. The mystaceti, or baleen whales, such as the rorqual, feed instead on minute shrimp-like crustaceans, krill. Veritable mountains of flesh and bone, some baleen whales can grow to lengths of 30 meters and weigh on average 150 tons, the equivalent of 25 elephants. On land, these creatures would be doomed to almost total immobility. However, in the water, they are less subjected to the constraints of gravity, since the density of their bodies is about the same as that of seawater. On the other hand, seawater does not facilitate movement because it is almost 1,000 times denser and 100 times more viscous than air. The cetaceans have solved this problem by adopting an aerodynamic shape. Their bodies, in a fish-like shape, tapered at both ends, enable them to advance at speeds of over 60 kilometers per hour. To reduce the friction forces caused by motion, a cetacean's skin is hairless and secretes droplets of oil that give it a shiny appearance. In addition, with the exception of fins or flippers, which stabilize and propel the animal, all former protruding parts that would hinder navigation have disappeared. Cetaceans often swim in cold waters, but like all warm-blooded animals, they have to keep their body temperature constant. For this, they build up a layer of fat, ranging anywhere from 10 to 50 centimeters thick, depending on the species. This adipose coat keeps the animal warm and enables it to save energy. To feed, cetaceans dive to various depths, staying down for various periods of time, depending on the species. The larger species can dive nearly 3,000 meters down and remain in apnea, that is, without breathing, for 90 to 120 minutes. When they resurface for air, they inhale and exhale rapidly. The series of rapid inhalations and exhalations, hyperventilation, eliminates from their system the lactic acid accumulated during the dive. Lactic acid, a toxic residue of the animal's muscular exertion, is expelled in the form of carbon dioxide. The exhalation, called blow, is only visible in the larger species. A white plume, mainly made up of humid air, is rapidly expelled from the lungs through the blowhole situated on top of the head. Large cetaceans can blow as high as 5 to 8 meters. When they dive more than 200 meters underwater, cetaceans navigate in almost total darkness, where sight is impossible. To explore their surroundings and to orient themselves, toothed cetaceans, such as the dolphin, have developed another sensory faculty: echolocation. The principle of echolocation consists of emitting ultrasounds of variable frequency in the direction of a target and capturing the reflected sound waves. These waves are believed to be emitted through the animal's nasal passage. Then the melon, an oily lens situated on top of its head, concentrates them into a thin beam. When the beam hits the target, it is reflected. The echo is picked up by a fatty cord attached to the ear bone. The information received is then relayed to the animal's brain, which interprets it. Only toothed cetaceans use echolocation as a means of orientation and perhaps communication. Certain cetaceans communicate in low-frequency sounds, sometimes audible to the human ear. These sounds resemble moans, sighs, or high-pitched chirps. They can last up to 10 minutes and be sounded several times in a row for hours at a time. The most powerful can travel distances of up to 900 kilometers, and their intensity in some species can attain 180 decibels. the highest sound power among living things. The purpose of these songs is little known. Like language, they seem in part to be the result of learning. Indeed, within a given species, they differ from one individual to the next. Scientists do not know, however, if the cetaceans' songs are related to a form of intelligence. Conversely, they do know that toothed cetaceans, such as killer whales and dolphins, have an astonishing capacity to learn and may therefore be intelligent. Someday, we hope to be able to communicate more closely with these amazing mammals. Judging from the size of their brains, dolphins would be almost as intelligent as we are. However, dolphins lack hands with which to build tools. This has afforded our species the opportunity to establish its ascendancy over nature. How wisely do we exercise that ascendancy?